everybody, and welcome to the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. Where come rain, shine, or anything in between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. I'm Ace Edwards, right alongside
Connor Baltazar.
And welcome to this week's weekly recap, where we're going to cover the Catsketball schedules, both of them, since they just released today. Then we'll talk about soccer and volleyball too, I guess. But the headliner is the Catsketball schedules. But before we get into those, we just want to thank the sponsors of today's episode. That is Greg, Arthur, and Grandma.
Thank you,
Grandma. And if you want to support the show financially and have your name read out at the beginning of every single episode, please be sure to check out the official supporters link to support us for as little as earn our undying gratitude and also have your name read out at the beginning of every episode. But let's just go ahead and let's dive first into the men's Catsketball schedule, because they sort of just dropped it on us all at once, which I don't mind at all. But I mean, Connor, what are your just like general thoughts? Because I know that you have, I think especially in the conference slate, you have a lot of thoughts, positive, about the schedule.
Yeah, I mean, the non-conference we've known for a bit, or at the very least, we've known majority of it. We have a few notable games on here. We're getting LSU at home, so I mean it's nice to get a power conference team, even though they are 62nd in the preseason, not the Ken Palm, the Bart Torvik ratings, and we beat them last year, which I guess says a lot about their quality from last year, but. That would be at least a notable matchup. Then we go to St. John's as well. That's going to be a solid team, particularly going on the road to Carnesecca Arena. And then we play at Wichita State, which, okay, sure. I don't know why we're doing that, but that's fine. And we're playing Drake too. But all in all, it's an okay non-conference slate, but I think we scheduled it well. I mean, in a perfect world, maybe not a perfect world, but it'd be cool to be able to play some marquee blue blood type teams in Bramlage. But that'll be the day when that happens. If we can maybe win a couple national titles, then maybe we can get Duke to fly out to Manhattan. But I think it'll take a while before that happens, but the big stuff is mostly on the men's basketball conference schedule, and I'm pretty stoked about this home slate that we have. I think it's one of the best home slates that K-State's ever had, maybe has ever had, because you look around here. It starts off with Cincinnati. Which that'll be a bit of a revenge game, but then gets right into it. The fourth conference game, we're hosting Houston on a Saturday. That's a huge, huge, huge game against a team that really just beat the crap out of us last year. We follow that up, host Texas Tech, hosting West Virginia, hosting Oklahoma State. Then, of course, you get KU at home February 8th. Then you follow that up with Arizona the next day, or not the next day, the next game. So you go straight from getting KU at home on February 8th to Arizona February 11th. That's going to be a really tough slate right there. And then in addition to that, you're going to get Colorado on a Sunday, which is interesting. I don't really remember the Big 12 having many, if any, Sunday games in the past. I guess that's a product of expansion and just needing more TV windows. And then, of course, you get Iowa State to cap off the year. So there's going to be multiple preseason top 10 squads coming into Bramlage this year. You have Houston's preseason 1, Iowa State's preseason 3, and KU's preseason 4, Arizona's preseason 10 on the Bart Torvik ratings. So you're looking at what was that? How many did I just list? 5?
Just 5.
4. Yeah, 4 preseason top 10 and 3 preseason top 5 teams, according to some advanced metrics, are going to be playing in Bramlage Coliseum this upcoming year. That's absolutely massive. I mean, it's notable that we're going to be hosting Arizona, and that's probably going to be like the fourth best game in conference play that K-State has at home, at least in terms of quality of opponent. Behind, of course, like Houston, KU, Iowa State, not in any particular order there, but I mean, this schedule is just an absolute gauntlet. And I was just listening off some of the home games, but I mean, there's going to be a pretty brutal stretch where we have to swing through Utah, BYU, and Utah. So we'll probably be hanging out there for a few days. We'll have to go to Hilton, of course. We'll have to go to Allen Fieldhouse as well. That'll be kind of early in the slate, January 18th, which if we're going to play KU on the road every year in basketball. I'd prefer to just get it out of the way and do it.
I'd prefer to get the first game of the series, honestly.
Yeah, like I'm totally fine with having that game a lot earlier. But there's some really good basketball that's going to get played in the Big 12. And also keep in mind that there's going to be some more CBS Sports Network games this year as well. The Big 12 just signed a additional deal to add more games to CBS Sports Network. And I've always thought that CBS has really great production quality comparatively to some of the other broadcasts. So that'll be a nice little addition. And I guess it gets some things off of ESPN Plus. I don't know how much that'll help viewership, but I have CBS Sports Network, so I'll probably enjoy it a little bit more just because I don't think ESPN Plus has great audio. I don't know if other people feel the same way, but I've never really liked their audio that much. But it's a tough schedule, but pretty much night in, night out, there's going to be a game that's going to be worth watching for K-State because there's going to be a lot of really great basketball being played.
Yeah. The real only complaint that I have with this schedule is I would have rather switched. I would have liked to get Baylor at home because I think, especially recently with Tang, you get the media storyline, so that's the incentive for them to do it. Plus, I think just a lot of those games recently have been just good games.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And that's going to be in a tough window as well, because that's going to be the game after we play KU at Allen. So that'll be tough. And then we'll get West Virginia at home the following weekend. So a Baylor sandwich in between those two games. Although you can really, I guess you can make that argument for about any game, like you can be like, yeah, this game's coming after a really tough game. And what game isn't, I guess, is the question.
Never take a night off. Help! This music sucks.
I mean, I'm looking at the preseason projections on the Bart Torvik advanced analytics. I mean, the only Big 12 team that's projected outside the top 100 to start the year is Colorado, and they're 116. So, even Oklahoma State, who was not very good last year, they're at 93rd. West Virginia is at 83rd. I mean, over half the conference is top 30 to start the season, and that includes K-State at 29. So this is going to be just a knock'em sock'em season for Big 12 men's basketball. It's going to be just absolute insanity night in, night out, and it's going to be appointment television.
Yeah, and yeah, I really don't have anything else to add. I'm really excited for the men's basketball season, but there is a season that I am honestly more excited for, and it's the women's basketball season. So before we cover that, do you have any final notes about the men's schedule?
No, I don't think so.
All right. So now we can talk about the women's basketball schedule. And in terms of marquee matchups, we've known the non-con for this, and I just forgot about the men's non-con being out for a little bit. My fault. But in terms of marquee matchups for K-State, they do end up playing Duke in the non-con, who I believe is a host team this last year in the NCAA in the tournament.
I think so.
Then you get A&M, who is also a tournament team. Middle Tennessee, I think, was a bubble team, or they did make it.
I think they made it.
Okay. So you get a few pretty good matchups. You also get Crichton towards that first stretch. But, I mean, I think realistically, you look at like the first 4 games of any season, you're not looking at many tests, but Crichton being the third game on the year, I think is going to be big. Plus that's in Bramlage. So that'll be another really good opportunity I think that'll be a good gauge game to see, how much support does this women's team get, which this isn't the women's basketball preview. I know that, but this team genuinely deserves as much support as the men's team gets, if not sometimes more. But yeah, Crichton, Duke, A&M, and Middle Tennessee are the marquee non-con matchups. Middle Tennessee is actually being played in St. Joe, and Texas A&M is being played in College Station. So you get one true road test and one neutral site test. And then you look at the conference schedule, and it's actually kind of looking pretty favorable for K-State outside of, you do get your 2 rivalry matchups up against Iowa State and Kansas with home and homes. You have to play Colorado on the road. You just get them on the road, but you also get Baylor at home in the non-con. So you look at the conference schedule they have. Cincy's still probably just going to be all right. Houston could be anything. Texas Tech always puts up a fight, at least. I have no idea what Utah is. BYU exists. Arizona and Arizona State could be anything. Colorado, I'm still bitter, and they almost killed me while I was driving back to Topeka. So that game is personal to me and me only. Iowa State, obviously, Audie Crooks is really good. KU beat us last year. Didn't they beat us? They beat us one. It was 1-1, right? We split.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. And then TCU will be a loaded team in terms of talent, which I'm really happy that we get them at home. But yeah, I really like the way that this schedule is shaping up because, Texas isn't here anymore. Texas was the only school in the Big 12 that genuinely scared me. And that's not to say that K-State won't be tested. They will. They're going to go up against multiple tournament teams, not only in the non-con, but during their conference schedule as well, including a team that knocked them out of the tournament last year. No, I'm not still bitter. Yes, I am still bitter. But yeah, I'm really excited just to watch this team kind of work. And I do think it is really important that you get teams like TCU and Baylor, you get them at home only, and you get relatively light fights on the road with like BYU and Utah.
Yeah, one game on the schedule that I definitely have circled, not just for the opponent, but the time of year that's being played. I think this game may be the biggest on the schedule, and it's the very last one. I think it's Iowa State at home on the last day of the regular season. That is an absolutely massive game because there's been one constant with K-State women's basketball the last few years is that they have not finished regular seasons very strong. They peak generally in that late January, early February range, and then they kind of fall off a cliff. Just seems like they just can't stay healthy towards the end of the year and they get figured out and they don't adjust super well. Whereas Iowa State teams have kind of been the opposite. They've been peaking late, feels like, as of recent. And last year they were a super young team that by the end of the season, they really gelled and figured things out. And like they were a very formidable opponent. And they're going to be one of the best teams in the country this year. And they're going to be, if K-State wants to win a Big 12 championship, it may very well come down to that last game in Bramlage. And
That last game's actually in Ames. They play Iowa State in Bramlage that January.
oh, okay, yeah, so even worse. And
yeah, it's not better. I wish it was flipped.
yeah, oh, I was getting that confused with the men, who their last game is Iowa State and
in
Bramlage.
Bramlage. Yeah.
So, but the women, that last game against Iowa State, that's going to be absolutely huge. You would ideally, if you're looking to win a Big 12 title, which you should be, you want to have that clinched before, and you definitely can't fumble or mess around with that home fixture against Iowa State. Catch them early and at least get one and build a cushion. But this team needs to find a way to get ahead and stay ahead. We just cannot afford to have yet another kind of latter third of the season slump, like it seems we've been doing, because this team has the talent to win the conference and make a run in the tournament. And this is probably the most talented. This is the most talented team that Jeff Mitty's had.
Yeah, and there's no question about
it's
that.
It's not even close. So this has to be the year. Granted, we're backfilling with some really fantastic commitments that are giving me a lot more hope for the future. But right now we have a ton of seniors, a ton of experience, and those freshmen are going to come in and probably be really talented, but they're not going to be at the same level immediately, probably. Never say never, I guess, but it's going to be a tough road for this women's team. There's going to be lots of opportunities to slip up, like the KU and Baylor games home late in the season, particularly that Baylor game. That's going to be just 2 days removed from that KU game.
KU's a physical team, so they will. KU aims to kind of beat you up a little bit, so it's a nice change of pace to Baylor, who's who is the opposite of their men's team, where they're a lot more finesse than they are beat you up.
Yeah, at least no one's going to beat us up like Texas, because they will beat people up. So glad we don't have to deal with that, at least. But it's a long and treacherous road, albeit not as bad as the men's side, I think, in terms of top to bottom talent.
Yeah. And like I said, you said it earlier, this is without a doubt the most talented team that Mitty has had, and it's not particularly close. We kind of expected, and honestly, last year's team probably should have made a much deeper run than they did last year. That was an Elite 8 team. Like, that to me should have been the bare minimum with that roster, is an Elite 8. You're returning pretty much everything from that, minus Gabby Gregory, which, no disrespect to Gabby Gregory, Tamira Poindexter is better. And that's not disrespect to Gabby Gregory. That is Poindexter just being that good. This is like a Final Four roster. And I will go nuclear if they do not make it at least to like the Elite 8.
Yeah, this team should be hosting a first weekend and absolutely needs to make it out. You're correct. They should have made it out last year, and that was just such a punch in the gut that they didn't make it out. I just felt horrible for that team not getting out of Manhattan and getting to the Sweet 16. So this year needs to be the season that they finally make it to the second weekend, because K-State women's basketball does have a storied past, but it's been a while since they've really collected some hardware. I'm trying to think. The women's basketball team, I think the last time they won the Big 12 was like 2003.
Oh my God.
2003 or 2004-ish in that range. But I can't even remember the last time they made it to a Sweet 16, though. I mean, I'd assume probably around that same time. But, man, I really don't know. I can't even think of it off the top of my head.
Yeah, but this is absolutely a roster that should get there. And I guess before we leave off and talk about soccer and volleyball, that is a that this is not a visual medium. So, Connor, I want you to share with what you just found.
2002 is the last time we made the Sweet 16. Um, the eyebrow raise was originally, I read the wrong column and thought it was 1980, but that was pre NCAA sponsorship of
Okay.
women's basketball. So I that was the initial reaction. And 2002 is still pretty bad,
Yeah.
but it's significantly better. In fact, it's 22 years better than 1982 for those using their calculators at home. But it's still not great. And last time they won the Big 12 regular season was actually a little bit more recently than I thought. They're saying it's 2008, according to Wikipedia,
Interesting.
which is a bit surprising to me.
Anyway, before we go on to soccer, I have one question. I don't think it's too difficult to question, but it's an interesting thought experiment. Which roster improved more, the men's or the women's roster?
I think definitely the men's roster improved more. That's not because I think the women's roster did get better, but they were starting from a higher spot. I mean, this isn't a perfect science, but even just based off of how last year ended for both of those teams, the women's basketball team was a 4 seed in the NCAA tournament and hosted, and the men's team was not even a 4 seed in the NIT, and so I think that spells a difference. It
Wasn't it
might be.
confirmed that the only reason they got into the NIT was because other teams said no?
I can't remember if that was the exact reason. It wouldn't shock me though, honestly. It would definitely be befitting how last year went for the men's team. But both teams, though, no matter how much they improved, are in the same position of there this year not really being any excuses. I mean, both teams went out very clearly added talent and are very clearly ready to win right now based on talent, based on who they went out and were targeting, and based on how they seem to be approaching this season. It's not like a rebuilding year for either team. It's like we are ready to win at this exact moment, and we have expectations to make a run in the postseason right now. So neither team's going to have excuses come March, hopefully April, but March at a minimum.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's not like the women's team definitely started off with a higher floor. I mean, Serena Sundell is projected to be a WNBA pick. I mean, because I think last I remember, she was like the second or third highest rated guard in like WNBA draft rankings. I'm not going to fact check this at all. If I'm wrong, don't correct me. Just like give me a shake of your head because I'm going to continue this narrative until I'm confronted with irrefutable evidence to the contrary.
I had not heard that, but I don't not believe you. So more power to you, man.
But yeah, she's thought of very highly in WNBA circles. You have the senior experience with the Glenn twins, as well as Serena, of course, and Aoka Lee coming back. It's Myra Poindexter, who's the American Player of the Year last year at the American Conference, I should clarify. And I know it sounds like we're talking about the women's team more than the men's team. It's because I like them more. It's because when we'll talk about both in the respective preview episodes, which you want to do like 2 weeks from now?
Sure.
All right, whatever. We'll make the plans as we go.
There doesn't really seem to be any like based on a cursory source, like a perfect source that's like, yeah, this is the go-to place for mock drafts for the WNBA. But based on what I'm able to find, she seems to be getting a projection as a somewhere in the uh, second round for the WNBA draft,
which is still good, but
which I think they have 3 rounds, and she's projected to go like kind of middle of the second right now, which is pretty solid.
she'd go in the first if she realized how good she was, if she got rid of Dean Wade syndrome.
I was about to say she has Dean Wade syndrome, man. I mean, we need to get Brad Korn on the staff because he was the Dean Wade whisperer. He was the guy that brought him out of his shell, allegedly. And so we need a Serena Sundell whisperer on the staff. Although there's going to be a lot of mouths to feed on this offense. It's not a guarantee that she'll come out there and average like 18 a game or anything. I mean, her best role on the team might be like 11 and like 5 or 6 assists.
Yeah, and solid defense. Though defense is more Jalen's thing because
it could be both their thing. I'm totally fine with them both playing defense. Yeah, let's not limit defense to. But you are right. That is more her calling card.
Yeah. Anyway, now we can talk about the Soccer Cats. Both of the matches we're going to talk about, K-State ended up falling to 2-1. First one was up against Cincinnati, who entered the match 4-4-1 with 0-2 in conference play. Then Texas Tech ended up beating Texas Tech was ranked 25th in the country going into this match. So K-State falls to both. I'm just kind of happy they scored a goal. Don't look at their shots on goal stats. You will be sad.
Yeah, the Cincy game wasn't a fantastic game from what I'm able to glean. I wasn't able to watch that game, so I can't really speak too much on like the genuine quality of the match. The Texas Tech game, I didn't realize this, but on the broadcast, Brian Smoller mentioned that I think with this win for Texas Tech, this gave them a streak of 23 unbeaten in Big 12 play. So it's been 23 matches since they have lost. So that includes both wins and draws. But they have not lost a game 23 times. They're the defending Big 12 champions as well. And they also are still 25th in the country and still doing fantastic. And they're missing a few starters, which is similar to K-State. K-State's down like 5 starters right now on the soccer team. And also on top of that, they had I think it was a 360-ish minute scoreless streak Texas Tech did where they were not allowing goals over like the last like 3 or 4 matches. And K-State was able to break that and had a few opportunities, some really good opportunities to actually even score again. K-State, I think, given the quality of opponent, actually really exceeded my expectations in this match. And really kind of seemed to be putting things together in a way that I haven't really seen much of, which we've seen signs of as well earlier this year. But I am saying this hesitantly, but I really think from watching the team, just from this year, comparing them to prior years, I genuinely think that this is actually a pretty significant improvement from what we've seen in the past. Like, we don't look like we don't belong on the same pitch. Like, we were there. Like, Texas Tech was the better team, but it wasn't like laughable. Like, it wasn't.
We weren't getting ran past every 2 seconds.
Yeah, like we actually even had a few times where we were able to like look more athletic than Texas Tech, and which was kind of shocking. I can't remember. I remember when I was a student, I went to watch a K-State Texas soccer match, and that was just a complete embarrassment. I mean, I was watching their center backs outrun like every attacking player that we had, and I was just like, this is embarrassing. Like, this is like watching like a JV high school team against the national team. Like, this is horrid.
I think you and I watched that game together, and you were explaining things to me because I don't know about soccer, and you're just like, "Yep, that's bad. That's really bad."
Yeah, this team seems to be better at passing the Beanie really wants to play things up the field and build, as opposed to just like send a nuke from the goal box and like hope someone comes down with it. Last year we were simply incapable of doing that because we sucked, and this year we've been able to actually do a decent job of building through the middle. Now we're not always converting, but there's some actual structure to what we're doing, or at the very least, I should say, the structure that we're trying to do is in place, which is a big step up. We're also seeing a lot of young players play. I saw someone that's apparently played the last few matches. This is the first time I'd seen her. It was Farah Stevens Martin from the UK, and she looked like she has the potential to be an incredible player, because I mean she was wildly athletic. She looked just way more explosive than some of the Texas Tech players she was going against. The only issue is that she's just really raw right now. She just has a lot of refinement to do, but athletically she's absolutely power conference quality and is ready. So clearly the recruiting's actually gotten better, and I can truly say for the first time in years that I actually have a bit of hope that we might not be doomed to be bottom of the conference forever. Now, we might still be bottom of the conference this year, but at the very least, I can see
we have a pulse.
Sliver of light at the end of the tunnel.
We have a pulse.
We do have a pulse. Although I will say this game for Murphy Sheaf, who's normally pretty reliable, I didn't think she had a great game on this one. I mean, she was pretty much the sole responsibility for the goal that ultimately gave Texas Tech the win, which came like 2 minutes after ours, which was really rude of them to only let us like have a tie for like 2 minutes.
Yeah, that was.
But she tried to punch a ball out, and she should have just caught it. She could have caught it pretty. Like her hands were all the way there. Like she could have caught it, I think. And she just deflected it right to a Tech player in the box, and it was a pretty easy score. So I don't know if we would have been able to keep it equal the whole way, but you know, it still wasn't a great play. But otherwise, she's been pretty solid. But
yeah, and I do want to give the flowers to Paige Dixon and Hannah Palmer. Both scored each of their respective goals in Cincinnati and Texas Tech. Next matches for K-State are UCF this Sunday, and then they take a week break and play Iowa State in Ames that next Sunday. Volleycats, they lost 0-3. They get more specific coverage when they win a set. Y'all can't behave.
Yeah. This is, I think, in the time of the show, probably the single biggest letdown that we've had from any squad.
It's not close.
Yeah, like the only team I think that's in the same universe is the men's basketball team last year. And even then it was like some kind of like additional circumstances. Like this year, everybody's healthy for the volleyball team. Like we're not like missing anyone. Like it's just they cannot win a set. And the most frustrating part is they're not really getting blown out like set to set. They're in most of these. Like they were leading late in some of those sets against Houston that they ultimately ended up losing. Like that first set, they dropped it 27-25, but they led it 24-23, and they led it by 5 at one point late as well. So the talent is there, but at this point with how they've been playing, I think it's a combination of the defense isn't where it needs to be, and they are in their own heads. I think that they've forgotten how to win. They desperately need to pick up a victory here soon, because, I mean, the NCAA tournament at this point is like all but gone. Like they're going to have to – that's hardly consideration at this point. They're going to have to like win out, really, at this point. Well, maybe not that dramatic, but they need to do a lot of winning, and then you need to do it fast, because this has been a remarkably disappointing season for the Volleycats.
Yeah, and like I said, they get more specific coverage the next time they win a set, but right now they can't behave. So
Yeah, we are not talking about any other stats because like even the players that did good, we're gonna pretend that you didn't, I guess. So
yep.
ooh, thumbs down.
Bad.
So shaking my head at the volleycats so they know I disapprove of them getting swept.
I think it's like 12 consecutive sets they've lost.
Something like that. I mean, they haven't won a set since September 15th
So
against
they won a
North
single
Carolina.
set for my birthday.
They
Great.
did. And they won the first set that day, got blitzed in the second, and then lost the last two close. And UC Santa Barbara, all those were close as well. Oklahoma, all of those were close. Like they haven't lost a set by more than 5 points in a while. And a lot of these are losses by like 2 or 3. So they're in all of these games, but they just can't finish. And at some point, it's even beyond bad luck. You just kind of got to look in the mirror. Like either that or maybe it is just like the actual worst stretch of bad luck that volleyball's ever seen. Which in that case, like law of averages says that we should be going on like an 8-game win streak here pretty soon, but it's man, it's pretty rough, which is a shame because there's a lot of talent on this team, and I think that if they can figure things out defensively, that they can, at the very least, have a shot in some of these matches. But man, it's been pretty disappointing.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to put it. But do you have any final notes before we sign off?
Nothing more from me.
All right. Well, if that's the case, thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. If you want to follow or contact the show, you can follow us anywhere at Aggieville Alleycats. And if you want to email us, we're AggievilleAlleycats@gmail.com. If you want to follow us on a more personal note, I'm at ACEdward00.
I'm at Hunter Store, capital C, capital B.
And if you want to support the show financially, please be sure to check out both the official merch store and the supporters link, both found in our podcast and Twitter bios. But most importantly, thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. Where come rain, shine, or anything in between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. Stay safe, Alleycats.